Dr. Wood, author of the book Miracles in Minutes, and part of the Miracles in Minutes concept is not just a physical perspective that causes people to have physical body aches and pains. There's also an emotional component to it. And I'm going to cover something called emotional intelligence. I've talked about it before, but what is it? We don't get this training in school. Everything's based upon IQ or intellectual quotient or how well you can do certain things. However, without EQ, emotion, or intelligence of our emotions, we can't get our lives together. See, if you're a great athlete and another athlete gets in your head and gets you angry or gets you upset, your A game's gone. Mashimoto, the famous author of the book The Five Rings, highly recommend it. Samurai Code, if you lose there, you lose your head. And he wrote the book. And what he would do is he would disturb his opponent by doing things that were absurd, that would try to get him off balance and get them emotionally charged, because then the person gets in their head, gets tied up in their emotions, and then they can't play their best game, or their intelligence is gone. You can't access your skills and your wisdom. So even though you make a 4.0, you reach the real world, you get these emotional triggers, and all of your intellect goes to zero pretty fast. Because what happens is the brain shuts down. You get stuck in your emotions. And at one time in my life, my emotions were getting the best of me, and I was making some stupid decisions, saying stupid things, and my life wasn't working out. So off to the bookstore I go and started doing some research. I said, I got to get this under control because, I'm just not enjoying life. And how do I was sad, and I was angry about some things, and I wanted to, legitimately anger about some of the things, and how to deal with those because it was ruining my head. So this is the book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradberry and Gene Greaves and Daniel Goleman. Okay, Goleman is the notorious founder of emotional intelligence, and what it is you become intelligent over emotions. So let's talk about anger. The theory is if you're angry, if you just yell and scream and vent, it makes you feel better. But what does the science say? It actually says that you wired yourself to actually create an angry person. See, the more you vent your anger, the more you wire into becoming angry. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? You would think by venting, it just feels good to yell. I just like to throw stuff. Ugh. The neurology and all the science says the venting doesn't make you get rid of anger. It actually becomes, you create a more angry person. What about crying? Crying's fine sometimes, but if you cry all the time in your room, what does the science say? The science says that if you cry a lot, that you tend to cry more. You become more depressed. Now, venting anger to someone is not a good thing. Okay? So they recommend deep breathing, reframing. In other words, reframing is, why are you upset? How did you see this? And how can you interpret it in your head a different way so that you're no longer triggered by anger? So you become a peaceful, loving, caring person versus an emotionally triggered person who's always on edge and throwing shit. Okay? Remember, the more you practice anger, the better you get anger. The more you practice crying, the more depressed you become. So what's the solution for depression? Okay? So part of it is actuality. Even the Bible talks about this. Talking about your feelings and talking about your sadness is actually a good thing. See, I think it says that a burden shared becomes half the burden. So in other words, when you're sad and upset and share it with a loving, caring, compassionate, and empathetic person, what happens is your burdens decrease because you actually got something off your chest. So releasing your sadness, releasing your upset, releasing your fear and guilt and shame and through confession is a good thing. Releasing anger on someone else, not a good thing. Okay? So that helps us to get out of it. Now, we'll talk about depression. Depression's a low vibrational energy, and what they recommend is you get active. That's what Goleman recommends. And I'm going to put a video at the bottom of this screen that explains Goleman's book. It's a quick animated series that has the caveats from his book and tells you what works and what doesn't work. It says exactly what I'm saying here. This is the best research, so This is what really does work. It's not what your mother said. It's not what your father said. It's not what your preacher said. It's not what society said. All those things are fine, but the question is, does it really work out for you in the real world? If it just makes you more of an angry person, that's not a good thing. Upset people become more upset. So if you start to develop your emotions and intelligence of your emotions, that's what makes the difference. That's what makes you a loving person. Your awareness of yourself, self-knowledge, manage of your own emotional state, learning things, skills that you can do that allow you to get your emotions under control so you are more stable. You take the chaos of the mind, and out of chaos you bring order, and chaos into order becomes peace. If you don't learn how to manage your emotions and start to realize or become aware of what's working and what's not working, sometimes you need a friend, sometimes you need to be in counseling, sometimes these things are beyond you. If you can't manage yourself, you need to hire somebody. You should see progress in a month. If you don't see progress in a month or soon, you need counseling. You need to see somebody. Or you need to hire an accountability partner. Dr. Henry Cloud talks about that in his books. He talks about if you can't get it done on your own, you can't hold yourself accountable, you need outside help. You need a friend, you need a coach, you need a psychologist, you need somebody. And there's no shame in all that stuff, because the important thing is becoming your best self. Okay? So, what else can you do with sadness and depression? You go and get active. You know, you don't feel like walking. You feel like laying in bed. Well, go for a walk. Go for a run, because that's high energy. Again, I like to practice the deep breathing and then also reframing. Reframing is rethinking about it. That's why sometimes you need therapy. A good cognitive behavioral therapist, a good therapist who understands what's going on to help you see the data that you're seeing and interpret it in a different way in your brain that becomes a positive belief for you, or you can reframe this. See, it's not what happens that messes you up. It's the interpretation and the meaning you're assigning to the event. You've learned or conditioned, like a dog, to see this event as harmful to you or sad to you. No one ever taught us how to manage our emotions, how to let things go, how to reframe, how to get control of our mind. If you can't get control of your emotions, it screws up your whole life. Get angry and then talk to your wife. Get angry and then talk to your husband. You harm the person you love, and instead of bringing a relationship together, you're driving it apart. Not having emotional control, self-awareness, self-knowledge, management skills of your emotions, and knowing what to do to help yourself, this is called insanity. You can't sweep this shit under the rug. You can't have a safe room here. You need to learn how to manage your emotions. You know, these are skills that should be taught in school. So if you start to learn how to manage your emotions with your intelligence quotient, you put those two together, you own this place. You enjoy life to a high degree. You learn how to deal with sadness. You learn how to deal with depression. You learn how to deal with grief. You learn how to deal with anger and upset. And so this way you stop getting triggered. So you got to pull, you know, if you got a booby trap and someone steps on it and you blow up and get angry and start yelling at people, it's not them, it's you. You have an emotional trigger that you're wired some way and seeing something in your mind in such a way that's not beneficial, and the only subconscious behavior is to yell and scream and throw a tantrum. This is not healthy. It's not healthy for you, and it's not healthy for creating love in your life. You'll also tend to live in sadness. You'll be angry. See, a lot of people who are depressed, it's anger towards inward. So there's anger and there's depression, and they're actually two pieces of the same coin. Anger turned inward becomes depression. You're angry at yourself. You got to learn how to manage this stuff. And then anger vented outwards only makes you more angry, and then you're more angry at yourself, then you're more depressed. So you go from anger and upset and overwhelmed to more depressed. Vent the anger, become more angry of a person to become more depressed of a person and crying. So you're either yelling and screaming or crying. Does that sound like a lot of fun? Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Daniel Goleman. I say all these things, and I think all these things should be taught in school from a very early age. I hate to say it, if we're really going to make a difference in the world, we're going to have to retrain the parents, we're going to have to retrain the grandparents, we're going to have to retrain the kids and the teachers and everybody. All this stuff is not taught. This is what does make a difference in the world. This is what does allow someone to find happiness with themselves. This is what does allow someone to become their best self and become a loving, caring person and involved in a relationship. But if the relationship you have with yourself and your own emotions and feelings, that can really affect you in the corporate world. I can tell you right now, some of the young people that come up that have a bad attitude, that have entitlement mentality, and have passive-aggressive behaviors. They're always upset. They don't know how to manage their emotions. They bring their emotions into work. They can cover it up with their pride and their ego and put on the game face. Oh, I'm a nice, loving, caring person. I promise I'll be a good employee. I just want to get the goddamn job and get a paycheck. But after 3 months goes by, you can't keep up that pretend act, and it wears off, and the real you shows up, and everybody finds out that you're passive aggressive. You don't know how to have conversations. You don't know how to be in relationships with other people. When you do talk, you're either sad or you vent and you yell and scream and you blame people. This is all destructive behaviors. You're destroying yourself. You're destroying your life. And this is not to condemn you either. I'm here to actually say I love you and I care about you, and I would love to see you have a great life. I'm actually upset that you're upset all the time, and I would like to help you find peace, joy, love, and happiness. Who doesn't want to find that themselves? The problem is there's a lack of knowledge. There's a lack of wisdom in the world of what does work, and we have to overcome our parenting and some of the teachers and some of our preachers and some of the people that are in our lives to help us connect to this new world, to help us connect to heaven, to enjoying your life and making the most of it. So I'll put the video at the end of this, at the bottom of this video, and I hope this helps you. Dr. Wood, have a great one.